This episode is brought to you by Fox One. Watch all 104 matches of the FIFA World Cup live in 4K for just $19.99 a month with 3 days free. Build your own multi-view, choose up to 3 streams, and follow player spotlights. Stay on top of every moment with live stats, highlights, and instant replays. The FIFA World Cup, streaming live on Fox One. Offers are subject to change. See fox.com for complete terms and conditions.
Listen, all you New Yorkers. Taxi. Okay, man, we're looking around.
This is the 77 WABC minicast.
Rachel Vaughn. Rachel Vaughn is in Australia. Rachel Vaughn's father was a Secret Services agent. He built his own house, created it to be able to clandestinely access the pre-World War II, listen to me, underground telecommunications bunker, which had once been a brick kiln, built at a lower level after clay had been dug out of their area. Now listen to me. Tunnels, this is in Australia, tunnels were later excavated to access a brick kiln beneath her childhood home, which was then transformed into a bunker with the addition of a concrete floor and communications equipment. The city of Adelaide, Australia, is dedicated to reptilians, which is in plain sight in the central square of Adelaide. It's called Victoria Square, which is literally shaped, you won't believe this, you won't believe this, it's literally shaped like a reptilian eye. Now, there's an excuse for why it's shaped like a reptilian eye, is that Victoria Square is dedicated to the original Aboriginal Australian. That's the lore. A rainbow serpent shaped like the region. The streetscape of central Adelaide is an Illuminati triangle. The reptilian eye of Victoria Square sits in the center of a capstone at the top of a pyramidal shape outlined by the main roads. It's quite astonishing to see. Rachel Vaughn, thank you for being on the other side of midnight. Do you feel comfortable on a show called The Other Side of Midnight? I bet you do.
Being born in the rabbit hole, Rob Walter, yeah, I'm quite comfortable.
And you're going to speak Australian like Kylie Minogue.
Yes, hopefully your listeners can understand me. I interview on quite a few American podcasts and things, and I get comments that people can't understand me, so I'll do my best.
This is the first show that matters. This is on the biggest radio stations in North America, reaching most of Canada. And you're also sounding like Millie Alcock, the new Supergirl.
Oh, I haven't heard of her. I'll have to look her up. I live in a backwater, forgive me.
No, that's all right. This week, the new Supergirl movie is going to come out. It's been promoted for a year. And Millie Alcock is the new Supergirl, and she is hardcore Australian. She drinks beer out of sneakers.
Oh, wow. Well, that's not the norm here, Walter. I can promise you that.
And by the way, the best thing about Australia, and then we need to hear your story about Adelaide and the reptilians. Boy, do we need to hear this. But I have to say one thing. I love Australia. Yeah. I love Australia, and I've been there a couple times. And the most stunning thing about Australia that Americans will never believe is that you can curse on the radio. And we cannot. And I was shocked when I got in a cab out of the airport in Australia, in Sydney, and the radio goes on, and the big midday talk show host on 2GB is on, and the first words I hear him say are curse words, absolute hardcore curse words. And I'm staring at it, and here's the thing Americans need to learn. Nobody died. He cursed, and nobody died. Isn't that amazing, Rachel? Unbelievable. Now, how do you know?
It is amazing, and thank you for the warning, because we do like to swear, and I do.
Yeah,
I do use it occasionally in my vernacular, so I'll be careful.
Of course you do. Of course you do, because you're human. But the FCC here in America is not human. It's made out of humorless drones. And, there's no faster way to lose your sense of humor than to go to work at the FCC. Now, Rachel, how do you know that these are actually reptilians?
Well, this is the first time I've spoken about this publicly, just so you know. So I actually touched one on the arm. I met two of them. So I was in the underground cellar. I estimate I was about 3 years old. And I had seen a lot of things by that age. I'd been in rituals where there were some pretty horrific things conjured up, but those things weren't physical. These two beings that I was working with, they were showing me how to do an interesting little light box experiment. And I was curious because I really love animals, and I was looking at them, and they had a lot of features of lizards. But, and I wanted to make sure that they were real because I'd seen so much already. I wasn't quite sure. So I touched one on the arm, and it was solid. It was way too articulated, like the tail was moving too easily. I just cannot fathom that it was a puppet. It was too real. However, I have to qualify that my father did have access to Channel 9 Studios, which is one of the major channel television stations here. So he used to work there, according to Debbie Marshall, who wrote a book about the family murders, which my father was involved with. But I'm convinced that they were real because it was a really interesting experience because my father introduced them to me and then was very nonplussed about the whole thing, turned around and started working at the telecommunications bench that he had in the underground cellar, which for people who don't understand, he built that house to have that clandestine cellar so that he could have access to the brick kiln that was underground and the tunnels.
Right. Rachel, I want to remind that we're on in Chicago on WGN Radio. Rachel, why would your father conjure this up? Why would he create puppets, things that could scare you? Why would he scare a 3-year-old?
Well, I have to say I was abused by a man in a teddy bear suit. We have a children's character here called Humphrey B. Bear, and I was abused by an individual wearing the top half of that suit. My first cousin was the producer for that at Channel 9 Studios for that program. So that is actually a very common thing with people who've had MK Ultra or satanic ritual abuse. They'll use puppets quite often.
All right,
that's why I like to qualify that for people.
No, I got that. All right, so let's assume it wasn't a puppet. You actually saw a reptilian. Please go ahead with your story. I got it, so please go ahead with your story.
So they were intelligent, and this is the bizarre thing. So I didn't know that this Disclosure Day movie was coming out in September last year when I shared this for the first time to a larger audience. So I'd spoken to friends and family about it. I spoke at my friend Danny Henderson's Galactic Spiritual Informers Conference in North Carolina, in Charlotte, in September last year to an audience of about 500 people. And I shared there that these little reptilians that were my size, I was about 3, were communicating with me telepathically, but they were doing so with a series of clicks. So they were clicking. And so when I saw this Disclosure Day movie come out, I was kind of annoyed, quite frankly, because, these things have happened to me throughout my life, and then they seem to sort of then become showcased. And I know that that's something that a lot of people who go through my sort of childhood, and I know a lot of people who have, by the way, it's not uncommon, disturbingly. And you often feel that the mainstream media uses a lot of this, puts it in films so that if you dare to speak out about it, you'll be told, oh, well, you just saw that in a movie. It's very frustrating. But, yeah, they're communicating with in that way through clicks and through telepathy. And I'll just clarify that I was trained from infancy in MK Ultra beta psychic programming.
What is that?
So mind control programming.
Rachel, what is that?
So if you've ever seen, and again, this is another one that drives me crazy, Stranger Things, the series on Netflix, that was basically about the MK Ultra project. So children, particularly with a particular eye colour, so central heterochromia is an eye colour that denotes a psychic ability in humans, and that was exploited by the Nazis in the Second World War. So they were testing on Romany gypsies who have that eye colour. It's mostly a Celtic thing, but it's known by the Hindus believe that people with heterochromia, central, full, partial, segmented, have this psychic ability. I was chosen from birth because I have this eye colour. In fact, I think my father chose my mother to breed with because she had this eye colour. And if you look at all the Hollywood elites that are high up actors and actresses, they often have one of those forms of heterochromia in the irises. So I was trained from a very early age in psychic training, and I was used as a go-between in satanic rituals with, demonic entities. They couldn't communicate with them, or they didn't want to because it's terrifying, and so they used me because I was disposable, basically.
Your parents viewed you as disposable?
Well, that's what happens in these cult families, yes. Children are disposable.
Got it. Do you have brothers and
quite a
sisters? Do you have a brother and sister?
I have I'm one of 7. I was one of 6 until a surprise brother turned up in 2012 who's since disappeared because he was acting as a double agent, so we don't know what happened to him. One of my siblings has been murdered, and her daughter was also murdered because of the case against my father, because they held serious information. And I have 2 siblings who have spoken out publicly alongside me, my brother Andrew McIntyre and my sister Ruth.
Got it. All right, now share with us the stories about growing up with reptilians, growing up with this awareness, because this is an extraordinary awareness for a person to grow up with. This must have influenced every part of your life, from school to dating.
Well, quite frankly, the experience with the reptilians was way down on the list for terror. I had a lot more terrifying experiences. This experience was actually not unpleasant. They were just showing me how to use this light box, which I've later considered possibly was an IQ test.
Right.
It had little pegs, yeah. So this was one meeting that I remember. I haven't remembered any other meetings with these entities. It's just this one time. And they weren't cruel. They weren't frightening. We communicated well. And I guess, I don't know if I passed the test or I didn't pass the test. I'm not sure, but I had way scarier experiences. My father was a mass murderer, so watching other children being murdered was much scarier.
Now, share with us that, because I don't know about that. Our listener doesn't know about that. Share with us the realization that Daddy was a mass murderer, and what did you see that you can share?
Well, one of my first earliest memories was watching 2 adult males being, what sort of language can I use here? Can I use the word dismembered?
Yes, you can use the word dismembered.
Okay, so that was in a local house that was a butcher, and I watched them being placed in suitcases. I didn't actually see their deaths. I witnessed multiple child unalivings, I'll use that word, in childhood. My father was a member of a group in Adelaide called The Family, and so Adelaide has actually been coined as the murder capital of the world because of The Family, which is a cult in Adelaide, and they are all elites, or deletes as I'd call them, high up in the media, judiciary, businessmen, very, very high up people that just get away with it. And a lot of Adelaide means aristocracy or of noble birth. So they see themselves as like apex predators, and it gets worse because, there's consuming going on as well. It's not just the murdering.
So they murdered to be cannibals, because this is what we're learning about Jeffrey Epstein and his friends. Yeah,
it's quite common across the world. I've been speaking out for 20 years. I have a lot of friends who've gone through very similar backgrounds, and this is worldwide. There's a website called 50voices.org that people can go to and hear many different people from many different parts of the world and many different dialects explaining and describing the same experiences. It's very widespread.
Understood. So please tell us how a couple things about what you saw, so we get a full picture of your childhood, and how the hell did you manage it? Well, I'm not sure why I wasn't taken out. There were certainly many attempts to take me out, but I just kept coming back into my body. So I don't know why. I know my father did say to me after running me over with his car that he couldn't kill me because he loved me too much, whilst I was forced to console him, and I was 6 at the time. I got out when I was 16 through a series of events under MK Ultra programming, under the theta psychic training. I found a way to terrorise my father so he would leave the house
So I basically lived on my own for a short period of time, and then I managed to escape to go and live with my mother. And this is what often happens. People under MK Ultra programming, you get trained to harm others. Unfortunately, it's a reality. But we can often turn that against our abusers, and that's how many of us have got away. My childhood was replete with being sex trafficked through these tunnels that you've already described. There was a multitude of underground cellars, bunkers. They're all being destroyed at the moment. The South Australian government is going through and just eradicating them, which is great because it means that not being used anymore, but it's very annoying because they're destroying the evidence. And it's bankrupting the state while they do that, by the way, which is very interesting. I was used in satanic rituals as a go-between, as I said, because I was so psychically open. I could communicate with these entities, which use the radio waves, which is an interesting thing, which is something I emailed you about. They use the auditory channels. So when you hear people talking about psychosis, schizophrenia, most of the time they're actually being harassed by demonic entities because they use the auditory channels so people can hear them. I shut that down in childhood because I didn't want to be the go-between anymore, and somehow survived doing that because they weren't very happy. The cult wasn't happy when I did it. But this is, there's a guy called Jerry Marzinski who, jerrymarzinski.org, you can look him up. He's a psychotherapist who used to work in penitentiaries, and he actually had experiences where his schizophrenic patients, the entities that were abusing patients, would then abuse him. So it's quite fascinating. I work as a psychic now. I've turned around the programming that I had and the training that I had. I now use it against the cults. And I train people to use, energetic protection, etc.
Right. How do you do that? Now, in your practice today, which is a healthy, positive practice, Rachel Vaughn, how do you use your skills now?
So I teach people energetic protection, which can be very simple. It's intent with sound frequencies, visualizations, that sort of thing. You can call in your higher self or your spirit guides or whatever you feel comfortable with. If you believe in God, those sorts of connections can be very protective. I had those connections from a very early age because I was in such a dire situation. I learned from very early on to ask for help. And this is something that's also common with people who've had my sort of background. You will go out of your body, you disassociate when you're being abused, and quite often that's when angelic beings will come in and you'll have these communications. That's partly why I'm still here as well. I had these communications from an early age. So I've been reading for people, ever since childhood, but I was used by the cult as a child for the information that I was able to bring through.
Right. Now, how did the cult use you? Rachel, how did the cult use you as a child? So
I was used in the rituals to communicate with the entities that they called
Right.
out.
Now, what were the rituals like? Describe to us, Rachel, Rachel Vaughn, one of the rituals. What were the rituals like?
Well, one in particular involved the unaliving of a baby boy, which was horrific. It involved a bonfire. There were about 50 adults present. I believe it may have been Belair National Park. There's a long history with Cleveland and Belair National Parks for these sorts of rituals. There were other children present, but we were all tied down to our own chairs and we couldn't move. And my father told me as this poor little baby was suffering horrifically that this bonded them all, bonded all the adults together because they all had dirt on each other because nobody helped that baby. Nobody helped the baby. So this is what they do. They bond. Satanists bond with fear and terror, not with love and kindness like normal people, like we would do. They do it, and through humour and, comforting things. They do it the opposite way. And a lot of them are driven by attachment. My father's attachment was Anubis, the ancient Egyptian deity. It's a jackal-headed demon. He even had that on his Facebook as his icon, a dog skull with bones. So the skull and bones being the 322, being, a Freemasonic symbol for an Illuminati member. And that was on his Facebook page.
Now, one of the theories that we keep hearing about with Jeffrey Epstein about the babies being tortured, the children being tortured, is that this sends a certain enzyme into their blood, that fear sends an enzyme into their blood, and that particular type of blood to the elites is very valuable. It's supposed to make them stay young, fearless. Have you heard about that?
Yeah. And I didn't see blood drinking, but my father did collect the blood of two of the victims that I saw murdered, child victims, and one was horrifically tortured for weeks.
Have any of these horrible people suffered? Have any of them been arrested, prosecuted, charged?
Well, three of my father's very close mates are convicted pedophiles, so they did go to jail, but they get treated very well here in South Australia. They don't
really,
they don't,
because
you know,
if a pedophile goes to jail here, they last about a week.
Well, that's a good thing.
It's the only.
But,
if somebody goes to jail in America for murder, sort of a hero. But if somebody goes to jail, especially a crime of passion, they're sort of a hero in jail. But if they're a pedophile, they'll be taken care of in about a week.
Yeah, and I'd like to say that happens here, but unfortunately it doesn't. They get protected, very well protected.
This is an amazing story.
And it would be the same here too, because most people in penitentiaries were abused as children. These are all people that have been horrifically abused and traumatized, and that's why they end up in jail, including pedophiles. And I'm not giving them, I'm not advocating or trying to protect them, but around 10% of people who are sexually abused as children will end up being a pedophile.
When did this?
They're the ones that then go on and abuse.
Rachel Vaughn, when did this horrendous experience that started when you were 3 years old, when did this end?
It actually started when I was about, it probably started from birth, but my first memory was I was about 1.5. So it ended when I was about 16. I got away from my father then, and then I started to recall some of the more horrific. There were some things I never got to forget, like having to push the cupboard up against my bedroom door to keep him out at night. But other things came up. And interestingly, some people's abuse memories come up chronologically. That was one of my family members' experiences. Mine came up in order of horror. The worst memories came up last. And interesting that the memory with the reptilians came up around about 2008, fairly early on in my recall. But I didn't speak to anybody publicly about it until this is the first time I've done it in a public airing on the air. Apart from, at Danny's conference last year.
Thank you for telling us about the reptilian experience. After you were 3 with the reptilian experience, was there more alien contact? Was there more contact with alien beings?
No. A lot of demonic entities, but no, I don't have any recall at present of any other experiences. There was a part of the hidden underground that I still haven't been able to open that door in my mind of what was in there. I know there's still memories I have to recall, but at the moment that's all I've remembered.
Now, you were trained under MK Ultra Psychic Theta. And yeah. What did you learn from the MK Ultra Psychic?
We are infinitely wise and intelligent beings. We are a soul having a human experience, and if we learn to tap in, we can have all the wisdom of the multiverse. We just have to have a very healthy, functioning pineal gland, which means not drinking fluoridated water, no fluoride treatments, no fluoridated toothpaste, eating well, taking good care of yourself. But I do warn people, don't go rushing into doing psychic work without learning how to energetically protect yourself. It's very important.
How do I know if I have a healthy pineal gland? How do I know if it's healthy?
Well, do you have psychic impressions?
I do. Yes, I do.
Excellent. Well, that's the sign.
That's the sign. That's it.
Yeah. Basically, if you're picking things up, if you see things before they happen, if you feel things, if you get somatic responses, if your body tingles when someone's telling you the truth, or if the hairs stand up on your body when someone's telling you a lie, if you're getting that extrasensory information, your pineal gland is functioning.
I've always known the minute I step into a room or an apartment or a house if it's a good place or a bad place. And I'm never wrong.
Well, that's a very, very good sense to have. Brilliant.
And then the other sense I have is that when I meet you for a job interview, a conversation, I don't need to check your references. I know.
I love that.
I know
okay,
if you're
that's awesome.
I know if you're good or bad. I'm not always right about your skills. I may hire you and it may not turn out, but it's never because you were a bad person. I've never had that experience. And I've literally never checked a reference in my life. Just wouldn't occur to me. And part of this, and you may find this vaguely entertaining, part of this is I grew up in New Jersey, and I had a New Jersey mom. And all through my childhood, when we'd meet somebody and we'd talk to them, and they seemed very pleasant, then we'd walk away. And sometimes my mother would say, "Oh, they're a great big phony." And so she tuned me to tell whether or not you were a great
Brilliant.
big. Yeah, it's true. It's a great big phony. Pay no attention to that. And it tuned me, and it's been a great gift to me. Now, listen, you are not a big phony. This is an amazing story, and you have the gift of definitely, I believe every word you said, and I felt for you every word that you said. So, therefore, Rachel Vaughn, you're going to be back on the show. That's your bad news.
Thanks for listening to The Other Side of Midnight with Walter Sterling. You can listen to The Other Side of Midnight Monday through Friday from 1 a.m. to 5 a.m. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?